Hello and welcome to another video from Easy How To Tube. This time I'm going to go over the steps to repair my Whirlpool Heavy Duty top load washing machine that is not spinning or agitating. While attempting to figure out what was wrong with this machine, I noticed a couple things. First, it was draining just fine, and then as soon as it would get to its spin cycle, it would make this really loud chattering sound. So I figured from there that the motor was likely fine. However, there was something broken in between the motor and the gear case that drives the tub. Before I went out and purchased any parts, I did take the time to take the case off and just have a look around, and was able to actually see the source of the issue. With the replacement part now in hand, I'm ready to get going on the repair. As you can see, I've already unplugged the machine, which for safety's sake is always the first thing that should be done. I'll just quickly show the part that I got for the repair. I was able to get a factory certified part from Whirlpool. It's called the motor coupling. For my machine, the part number is 285753A. Looks like it's a pretty common part. It was certainly easy to find online. Lots of aftermarket suppliers are carrying it as well. If you're wondering about how to get the model number for the machine, it's actually hidden just underneath the lid. If you lift up the lid, then there's a tab there, a sticker that has the model number, the serial number, that you can use to go on Whirlpool's site and actually find the exact part for your model if it's a little bit different than this one. Before I go any further, I am going to just quickly turn off the water supply to the washer. It's a good idea just in case. To get started on the repair, the first thing that we need to do is get the cabinet off the washer so that we can get to the parts underneath. It's really easy to do. The first step is just to take these two screws off the top of the washer. So I'll do that now. Once the screws are undone, we can actually just remove the control panel by flipping it up and to the back. It'll just stay there while we continue on with the repair and continue removing the cabinet. There is just one small plug that needs to be undone once the control panel is flipped to the back. We'll just pull that out right now. To get the cabinet off, we just need to remove these two large metal clips. I've found that just using a flathead screwdriver and prying on them, they pop right off. With the clips off, the cabinet is ready to be removed. It's pretty easy to do. Just grab it from the back, pull it forward, and it'll slide forward and off the machine, and then can be lifted off, put somewhere else out of the way. With the cabinet off, we can now clearly see the pump on the front of the machine towards the floor. It's easy to take that off. It's actually just held on by two metal clips that can be easily popped off by hand. The clips themselves can be removed just by giving them a quarter turn, and they come right out. Once the clips are off, just grab the pump, pull it forward, and it'll come right off to reveal the motor behind. You can see the output shaft on one end of the motor that goes into the pump. At this point, looking in behind the motor, on the back end of the motor, where it enters the gear case, by turning the shaft on the front, I can see that there's definitely some loose parts in there. The coupling is clearly broken, and this is what I did before ordering the part, just to diagnose exactly what was wrong. Taking the motor itself off is only slightly harder than removing the pump. Like the pump, it's held on just by two clips, except in this case they're secured by some short screws. The screws can be easily removed just by using a screwdriver. If you have a screwdriver with a removable bit, in my case it was actually the exact size of the hexagonal head on the screws. Remove both the screws, and then once the screws are out of the way, the clips can be pried up and off, and the motor will fall away right away. The motor is now detached from the gear case and can be just moved off to the side. There's enough slack in the wires there to create enough room to work. Just pause for a minute here and take a look at the coupling on the gear case side. Looks like it's okay there. However, I took a picture of the one that was removed and it's very clearly broken. So that was broken on the motor side. At this point, we're ready to start putting the new motor coupling parts on. Start by just taking a look at the gear case side of things. All the broken pieces have been removed. Same on the motor end. Broken pieces of the old motor coupling have all been taken off. I started to put the new motor coupling on, putting it on the gear case side first. There's the new part put on. And then the same thing on the motor side. Took just some light tapping in both cases to get them onto the shafts. Once those are in place, I put the rubber damper that allows the two sides of the coupling to engage together onto the gear case side of things, and then turned the motor such that when everything went back in place, they would line up and I'd be able to slot it together. At this point, we're ready to start putting everything back together. First thing to do is to just double check that the two ends of the motor coupling are aligned such that they'll mesh nicely when the motor is put back into place. Also note that on that plate that surrounds the gear case, there are some nice depressions where the rubber feet on one end of the motor sit into. It took me a few attempts to get the alignment correct, however, with a few checks and rechecks, eventually it slotted right into place. It's very easy to know when you've got it right. With the motor clips back in place, we just secure them with the screws that were removed before. Compared to the motor, putting the pump back in place is relatively easy. Just make sure the output shaft on the motor is lined up, and then move the pump back into position and secure it with the clips that were removed. Now the cabinet can be lifted back into place. Just wanted to quickly show how the cabinet goes onto the front of the washer. You can see that the front edge of the cabinet goes underneath the front edge of the chassis of the washer itself. With the cabinet back in place, we're ready to finish securing it. I've already put one of the clips back. Also need to hook back up that wire plug that we removed earlier. Putting the clips back on is pretty easy. They just hook into the back of the washer and then clip into the top of the cabinet. It can be easily done by hand. It's worth as well checking to make sure that the back panel of the washer is kind of seated nicely against the cabinet once it's been put. And then we fold the control panel back down and it hooks in place. Then we just need to refasten those screws we removed earlier. At this point, we can turn the water supply back on so that we can test the machine, make sure everything has worked out well and that the repair has been successful. I've plugged the machine back in and I've set it to do a regular cycle here to test it. Everything's put back together, so it should work just fine now that the motor coupling has been replaced. As soon as the water finishes filling, the agitator should kick in, and if that works, we'll know that the spin should work as well. This was a pretty easy repair to do. In total, the part shipped cost about $30, so it wasn't that expensive either. I hope that you found it helpful. Take a look down in the video description where I've put a downloadable PDF of the steps that I took. There we go. The machine is agitating again, and I'm sure the spin will work as well. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Check back on other videos I may do. Thank you very much for watching.